Just waiting for the music. Well, good morning, folks. This is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXEX, the best talk in town. Wanted to let my local listeners know that we are also on 102.3 FM, so we're expanding. Apparently, there's a few glitches, but when it plays, it's a new opportunity to listen to this station. So KXEX 1550 AM and also on 102.3 FM. You can also find us most of the shows on social media. Should be an interesting day. I believe that we're very much in a culture war, and we complain about the politics, but politics is downstream of what's happening with the culture war. And I think that while some of the things that are happening are terrifying, at the same time, people are waking up. One of the important things is we have a template of how to have a successful, freedom-based society that is pretty inclusionary, not perfect, believes in meritocracy, meaning just like in sports, the most capable player gets paid the most. Think about that concept. That's one of the few places where the left hasn't went, oh, that's not fair. Because they talk about how they all want to be fair, but lately they've decided that fairness doesn't matter when it comes to the trans issue, and that you can be a pretend female and you should be able to participate in women's sports. Kind of crazy. Now, one of my heroes in the culture war is Konstantin Kisin. This is a little short piece of a much longer piece where he talks about woke culture. I think that he absolutely struck an important blow in bringing a little sanity to it. And so we're going to go ahead and play just about a minute of his speech. It's just a piece of it, but I think that if you get the time, and I will try to post this in various places so that you can find it in the social media to connect and hear the rest of it. Let's go ahead and play that video.
Of talking about woke culture. That's why it's gone too far, more than anything else. And I thank the other speakers for making the points for me, because it means I don't have to reiterate the point that no, free speech is not some right-wing reframing of whatever. It's the foundation of Western civilization. Upon this civilization is built, and the Enlightenment values that led to it. I don't have to make the point that has been made by far better people in the past, that the only way to deal with the problem of racism is to treat people on the content of their character and nothing else. And the fact that woke culture seeks to overturn that is a new form of racism that we must all oppose. It means also I will not use this opportunity to say I told you so, as someone who spent the last 5 years warning people in the West that if we continue to erode our culture, if we continue to undermine our confidence in Western values, that our enemies like Vladimir Putin will seek to capitalize on it. I will not make any of those points tonight at all. Instead, I am not going to talk to those of you who already agree with me, which I imagine is most of you. I'm not going to talk to you because I imagine after everything you've heard tonight, you're going to vote for the proposition. I'm going to confess I will take your vote for granted. Tonight, I am the Labour Party and you are the Red Wall. Now, I want to talk to those of you who are woke and who are open to rational argument. A small minority, I accept. Because one of the tenets of wokeness is, of course, that your feelings matter more than the truth. But I believe in you. I believe there are those of you here who are woke, who are open to rational argument, so let me make one. We are told that your generation cares more than any other about one issue in particular, and that issue is climate change. We're told that many of you suffer from climate anxiety. You wish to save the planet. And for tonight, and tonight only, I will join you. I will join you in worshipping at the feet of St. Greta of climate change. Let us all accept right here, right now, that we are living through a climate emergency and our stocks of polar bears are running extremely low. I join you in this view. I truly do. Now, what are we to do about this huge problem facing humanity? What can we in Britain do? We can only do one thing. You know why? This country is responsible for 2% of global carbon emissions, which means that if Britain was to sink into the sea right now, it would make absolutely no difference to the issue of climate change. You know why? Because the future of the climate is going to be decided in Asia and in Latin America by poor people who couldn't give a shit about saving the planet. No, thank you. No, thank you. It's going to be decided by poor people in Asia and Latin America who don't care about saving the planet. You know why? Because they're poor.
Let's
Because
cut it
they're
there.
poor.
So think about that. It's not that we shouldn't do things, but we should find ways to make energy more efficient, find ways to make energy cheaper. We should use innovation and technology to fix this global problem rather than the solution that the religion of climate change has decided to use. That religion being that, well, we all have to cut back on carbon. We all have to make ourselves poorer. We all need to live in 15-minute cities. Remember that? You know, when the right talks about the Great Reset and we are told, oh, we're just conspiracy theorists. Well, I want to point out that there's a book called The Great Reset written by a liberal. I want to point out that the World Economic Forum, full of billionaires, those billionaires, some of the biggest ones like Klaus Schwab, George Soros. Oh, and that idiot from Microsoft. You know, the guy that hangs out with the pedophile all the time. What is his name? Oh, can't think of it. Oh, I bet it popped into your head. Then I don't even need to say it because you already know who that guy was that hung out with Epstein. All of them talk about the Great Reset and the need to reduce the population to 500 million people, the need to control us, the need to eliminate all fertilizer that is oil based. Well, Sri Lanka tried that and they starved and they overthrew their government because they were starving. We're not there yet. What you need to do is, again, use technology, and you need to have some reasonable goals. When you listen to the climate change people, there's 42 different things they want you to do. What if you picked the most important 5 that would make the most difference and maybe didn't crash the economy? Like, for instance, when poor people, because they don't give a shit if they're worried about eating, they don't care about climate change. They care about their kid maybe having a full stomach. So, what if we were to find a way to give them a better life, to help them to use technology, to help them have a better life? As soon as people become more middle class, they start paying more attention. And that's not a caste system. That is just simply, at least in the US, middle class is normal. Well, those people care more about the environment because they own property. One of the keys to being invested in wanting to take care of the planet is having property because you want to take care of your own property. So if your neighbor was trashing things, wouldn't you be mad? So I do think this can be solved. But remember that when arguing with woke leftists, only some of them can hear rational arguments. You know, I kind of jotted down some things. The woke left always thinks the solution is more government control and more government control. And if that didn't work, what we need is more money to pay for more government control. you've got this swamp that is somewhere in the middle that is only cares about power and their status quo, protecting the success that they've already got. On the left, their goals are fairness. Okay, but how are they going to go about that fairness? They're going to go about that fairness by seeing color first, by putting us in tribes, by looking at the numbers and going, the only way to fix this is for everything to be equal actually by the numbers. Oh, but because it's a systemically racist system, we have to tear everything down to get there. So they want equity. But the only way to truly do that is to give government so much power that it tears everything down. Like I said, tribe is the most important thing to the left. You're not an American first. No room for patriotism. That seems to be a tenet of the left right now. You can't be proud of your country because we're systemically racist. We were founded in a way that was flawed. Guess what? So was every other country. Guess what? There's blood on the hands of every country on earth. Guess what? When we were founded, slavery was a norm for the world. And I'm proud to say that we got rid of that abomination by fighting a civil war sooner than most of the world. So, do we have blood on our hands? Yep. Should we do better? Yep. Well, it was the Republicans and the abolitionists that forced that war to happen. Not the Democrats. That's quite interesting. The left seems to believe that if you destroy religion and replace it with the religion of either government, trans, climate change, and they're all kind of wrapped together with government, we'll find this utopia. Peace on earth, heaven on earth. Well, every time I seem to talk to somebody, and I did yesterday, I talked to a very interesting woman that was Czechoslovakian, and she left, she escaped during communism in about 1985. She didn't have any freedom over there. For all my friends on the left that want to talk about how, oh, well, just the wrong person was in charge of communism, the wrong people. That's why there wasn't the utopia. No, it never works. Stop kidding yourself. The left wants no guns. Why would that be? They're going to say because they don't want senseless murders. I'm going to say it's because they don't want people to actually be able to defend themselves. They don't want people to be able to defend their property. They even question your right to self-defense. They don't want a police force to help you. So the tools that the left is using to create this utopia. Now, they've been very clever lately, and they have overtaken big corporations like BlackRock. Not our friends, folks. If you're invested in BlackRock, you need to get out because they're using tools like ESG, environmental social governance. Those and what that essentially does is it gives you a score, it gives a company a score. And if the company isn't getting good scores, then there's consequences. Like they can't get loans. When government is involved in that, not only can't you get a loan, but maybe you can't buy gas. You've used too much gas. Whatever freedom choice you might want to make, government knows better in the eyes of the left. They know better, and there's no place for freedom. The other thing that they're using that is not actually exclusively being administered through government is the DIE, diversity. I'm a little tongue tied there. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. So that looks at what's going on in a given situation. That might be in a bureaucratic state, let's say the DMV here in California. And they'll go, well, your percentage of the population that's black needs to be exactly the same. The percentage of people that are in management needs to be exactly the same. Now, what if the blacks were the most capable? That's possible. Look, one of the smartest people I've ever read and studied is Thomas Sowell. So that's possible because I don't think that color has anything to do with intelligence. There doesn't seem to be any correlation. Every race has some brilliant people, and every race has a whole bunch of people that are significantly less than brilliant. So, if we were to look at that example, according to diversity, equity, and inclusion, the government wants the power to force you to have the percentages exactly the way they want. So, each one of the oppressed tribes, and I suppose LGBTQ would be one of the oppressed tribes, though they're certainly a diverse tribe, and I still haven't learned all of my gay BCs. But they need to be there in exact percentages. Well, another way to look at it is men and women. If women chose to do different jobs, but it did not fit the exact quotas, because quotas are just a way of looking at racism instead of looking at meritocracy, then they would step in. So they've implemented this diversity, equity, and inclusion movement in corporations as well as in our state, in every state, that we're supposed to look at everything that way instead of the most capable winning. And the left, we'll get back to left's tools, but the left constantly talks about how capitalism's just greedy, and we won't be greedy as soon as, oh, we give state full control. There won't be any greed. Anybody believe that? That's kind of copium, total fantasy. What capitalism does is it harnesses your desire for your self-interest. So every choice you make, you're doing it for your benefit, right? And corporations, when they're not allowed to become monopolies, are doing that for their own benefit, and they're competing in the marketplace of ideas or products, depending on what they do. So we're all harnessing our desire to fit our needs, our greed. And as long as there's not immorality that goes with that greed, I don't see a problem with that, because I can make better choices about my life than anybody that's sitting up there in the Capitol at Sacramento. And if you believe they can make better choices for you, to all my leftist friends, I suggest that you just hand over your autonomy. Oh, wait, you already have. Because rather than have rational discussion, if I say something that you disagree with, I'm instantly a racist, a sexist, a homophobe, or any other of the isms that you will accuse me of, rather than having free speech and a rational debate. That's what frustrates me so much. So, getting back to their tools, screaming emotional appeals. So they bully people by screaming the loudest. They've quite successfully used that tactic to intimidate both companies and politicians. They've used that tactic to scare our big sports heroes. Some of them will sort of take a stand, and then quite a number of them, once they take a stand, rather than actually sticking with it, turn into spineless, pitiful little cowards. Like in Major League Baseball, the guy from the Toronto Blue Jays. So, name calling and bullying rather than rational discussion. They like to repeat lies. For instance, there's more than two sexes. No, there's two. You might choose to orientate and sleep with any number of variations, but there's two. And the idea that even if you have surgery and use a bunch of chemicals, that you actually become the other sex, it's just bull, and there's a word that goes with that. Just pure copium, total fantasy. They like to suppress speech. They believe that destroying religion is the solution. They want to sexualize your kids. They want to dumb down your kids. They want to talk about how, oh, your kids need to know more, but what they need to know more of, according to the left, is all about sex, all about transgenderism, nothing about the Constitution, nothing about free speech. Quite interesting. I got a little more hopeful note when we come back. Let's go ahead and go to break. This is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXEX, the best talk in town. Also on 102.3 FM. I want to say thank all the people. We are finally back up on YouTube. Not so excited about that one, but hey, I'll take what I can get. We are on Rumble. Excited about that one. That's a big deal. And we are on Facebook. So there are ways to see this show if you can't see it live from 3 to 4 on 1550 KXEX. If you like what I'm doing, don't hesitate to speak up. Matter of fact, I believe in free speech. If you don't like what I'm doing, don't hesitate to speak up. Comment, subscribe, depending on how you're getting this information. But feedback's always appreciated. If you have rational thought, I'm willing to actually engage. If it's just a bunch of screaming, I'll probably ignore you, to tell you the truth. Let's go ahead and come back. This is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXEX, the best talk in town, as well as new. We're on 102.3 FM. And we're going to talking about some differences between the right and the left. So what would be the goals of the right? I kind of scratched down a few things. Equality of opportunity, meritocracy. The Constitution is something that, I don't know if it's right to say it's a goal, but it's the underpinning of reasonable Western government. That we are at least the inspiration to all of those other Western democracies. That we're a republic, which I think makes us unique and better. We dare to think that America should be first. We're okay with patriotism. We buy into the idea of a melting pot. So when you come over here from another country, you don't drive around with that flag. Instead, you embrace the freedom there. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't have your own culture, but that should be second. You should be America first. Again, if the immigrants I know that came the right way. In other words, they didn't sneak across the border because we've got an incompetent president and an even more incompetent vice president that's in charge of the border, that are okay with people sneaking across the border and encourage them to do so, and then lie and say the border is under control. It's not true. It's a complete and utter lie. And because one of the responsibilities of the president is to control the border, I think he should be impeached. Now, it's kind of somewhat of a waste of time because he's incompetent, and sadly, the person behind him is even more incompetent. But in a sane world, he'd be impeached. Now, we're not in a sane world. The right, I think, wants divided government. We want not just divided government, but we want kind of a separation of powers. Now, again, in the middle of the swamp doesn't, and they don't want to take responsibility. And a lot of the politicians that are in with the swamp are quite willing to just hide behind what some bureaucrat said needs to happen. So they're cowards. There's examples of that even locally. I'm not going to go into that today, but I'm coming back to that one, Clovis. They want limited government. And the tools that we have at our disposal on the right, I think these are powerful tools. These are why I am long on the United States. Why, instead of being down about everything that's happening, I think these are what it's going to take to awaken the sheep. Some of the lions are awake, I think there's a lot of sheep that don't realize they're lions, and when they wake up, I'm looking forward to it. We've got the First Amendment still. Now, I get that the Democratic Party, the deep state, not a big difference, and the corrupt Republicans, not all of them, but definitely a significant percentage, they're all willing to collude between the government, big pharma, big tech, to create a narrative. And they're willing to use those powers that they have to threaten, say, big tech, that we have to be censored. They don't actually believe in the First Amendment. Well, the First Amendment, it's powerful because it's not just freedom of speech. People think it's just freedom of speech. That's one element, and that's truly an important element. But it has 5 aspects. Freedom of assembly. So you could go out and you can hang out with whoever you want. Might be at a protest, might be just you're hanging out. And we had a time just a little while ago when everybody seemed to listen, including members of my family. Oh no, we need to be in fear of COVID. Guess what? You had a First Amendment right. You can make whatever choice you want. And the government can go pound sand. Freedom of religion. What happened there in the churches? Some of them stood. Some of them believed that they had, I don't know, a divine word from God that they were supposed to be teaching. And they continued to meet. And some of them decided to be spineless, pitiful little cowards. Thank goodness not all of them were spineless, pitiful little cowards. And they just complied. Oh, we can't meet. Well, I guess we can kind of go to some online thing. But, religion isn't really so important that people would need to actually meet and have fellowship. No, it's okay that we're spineless cowards. So I'm not going to be real popular with some of the church because, frankly, I think you utterly, embarrassingly failed. If you weren't sure whether you were the person that would have complied when Hitler took over, when he started taking all freedoms, look at what happened in COVID and decide, what kind of person were you? Did you comply? Were you the one that was just going to go along with whatever the politicians could get away with telling you? But some of us stood. Once a second person stands, because when one stands alone, people look up. When a second person stands, all of a sudden it becomes powerful. When 10 people stand together, they become almost an unstoppable force. Freedom of the press. Not as powerful as it used to be in a way because the mainstream media is dying. Should, because it's all about narrative. You can go to Fox News and it's a different narrative than MSNBC, but you only see a portion of the truth. So the reason I'm so encouraged is because we have what we call new media. Podcasts being one of the largest. But radio, it's not new, but largely, aside from a few words that you're not supposed to say, radio's free unless you work for a corporation. Thank goodness this is a small independent station. I like to think of this as the Wild West of free speech, where we can talk about anything. Should we and do we have a moral responsibility to be polite? Yeah, we largely should. But that doesn't mean that we should hide from real issues. We should speak up. So that's powerful. I think I got all 5. Oh, and we still have the ability to petition our government without fear because they're not supposed to retaliate. And you can take them to court. Now, the court system's a difficult way to go, and I get that there's a lot of bad judges that don't actually believe in freedom, but we got the Supreme Court. That's a powerful tool. We've got a message of responsibility. They've got a message of insanity. Are you out there doing your part, spreading this message of responsibility? A message that, hey, this is a place of freedom where if you work hard, not everybody can be president, but everybody can meet a lot of their dreams and be wildly successful. Not everybody should be president. I think we've got an example of somebody right now that I don't believe should be president. An example of somebody that the left decided this is the way to go because we need somebody that represents diversity, equity, and inclusion. So they picked the oldest, most corrupt, longest serving in government individual they could find who happened to be white. And there's their shining example of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Aren't you proud? I know I'm proud. Changing just a little bit, because I tend to get a little philosophical. There's somebody that does videos on a regular basis. His name is Buddy Brown. I think he's a lot of fun. He reminds me of a whole lot of relatives I've got, especially on my mom's side. They're just real folks. They work with their hands, they got common sense, and they're totally real, and they speak right up. Well, Buddy Brown, he has a funny take on a lot of things, and I think this will put a smile on your face. But the fact that he's still able to say this, and he's just one voice of many, and you can find him on YouTube. I believe he's also on Rumble, is important. Because if we can shift the culture, we can shift politics. Go ahead and play Buddy Brown.
All right, Lessons from a Southerner Part 2. We live in a world where our kids can't pretend to be an Indian, but a grown-ass man can pretend to be a woman. What's the difference between a gun and a whiny liberal? A gun only has one trigger. A black woman can't be on a syrup bottle, but a fake woman can be on a beer can. You can't starve people who know how to hunt. MTV needs to stop doing shows like 16 and Pregnant and start doing shows like 18 and Graduated. God created man and woman. Democrats created all the other genders. Pickup lines are for guys who don't drive trucks. The rest of us just need a full tank of gas and a smile. A woman holding a shotgun is either the sexiest thing I've ever seen or the scariest moment of my life. Denny's is like Waffle House for people who don't know how to fight.
So Buddy Brown's always a lot of fun. I'd encourage you to look at his content. He brings a positive message generally kind of funny. Anyway, I've got a quote getting a little more serious from somebody that lived through communism, spent most of his life in Russia, lived here for a little while, has written multiple books. He even actually became an atheist for a while. And while he was in the gulag, because that's what communism does. If you don't agree, you disappear for a while. If you're really lucky and an important individual, you might come back out. But a lot of times you just disappear. Well, he was lucky enough to come back out. He's written multiple books. That is Alexander Solzhenitsyn. I got that slightly wrong. Alexander Solzhenitsyn. Anyway, written multiple books. I encourage you to look into this man. I've got a quote from him. The name of reform simply covers what is latently a process of the theft of national heritage. Now, he wrote this in the 60s. What is woke? They're trying to tear down everything. They want to tear down statues. They want to erase our common culture and replace it with, I don't know, some trans/global warming cult. But the playbook seems to be the same. That's the part that's interesting. In the 60s, what the communists did to erase history in the name of reform and what the woke want to do in the name of reform, there seems to be a strong parallel. So while I'm not sure that a lot of the woke people, because they can't actually have a discussion, they just will call me a bunch of names, their leaders, some of them are actually smart, though, because you're a leader and if you're in a communist system and you're one of the leaders, guess what? You're not oppressed. You have it pretty good. You get to boss people around, make more money than everybody else in the oppressed system, have more privileges than everybody else. Because the dirty little secret is in communism, and frankly, in true socialist governments, there's still rich people and there's still a ruling elite. So, did you ever get to the utopia that you're supposed to get to? No, you never do. So, they're standing on what I consider to be just shaky ground. That's why I'm long on the US, why I'm enthusiastic about our country. Because what we're facing, yeah, they're a bunch of loudmouth bullies, but they're standing on shaky ground. All we have to do is stand against them and go, we're not putting up with that. Now we've got some signs of us not putting up with that. You know, we've got soldiers willing to give their lives while we've got politicians willing to take away our rights. But we still got soldiers willing to make the ultimate sacrifice. We've got a rainbow mafia. Anybody intimidated by the rainbow mafia? Companies seem to be. I'm not intimidated by the rainbow mafia. And by the rainbow mafia, I mean the whole LGBTQ, ABCD, whatever it goes off to be, because they've constantly imagined some other potential thing that they are. Now, as adults, if they want to go do that thing, fine. Whatever. Go do your thing. But don't demand that if I don't embrace it and love it in every way and tell you that it's the greatest thing since sliced bread, that I need to be canceled. I need to be destroyed. Well, you know what? You're coming. You're going to do your best. I'm going to stand against you because I'm not afraid. And I get that if you use Antifa, which, again, Gibber and Joe just thinks is an idea, not an actual organization, I get that they might come against me. Well, I'm prepared to stand and I will do what I need to defend myself. So, some signs of hope, because there are absolutely some signs of hope. When, I believe is it Brittany Griner? She went to Russia hauling a bunch of pot, which is illegal in Russia. And then she got to sit in a jail cell for months. When she came back, she decided maybe I should stand and salute the flag. A taste of communism, and suddenly she went, oh. Now, I don't believe that turned her into a conservative or anything pro-American, but it's a step in the right direction. So that's a sign of hope. We've had quite a number of former baseball players look at what the Dodgers are doing with the Sisters of, I don't know, something perversion. Didn't write it down, folks. Don't remember. It's this LGBTQ transdressing, highly offensive to Catholics and religion group that parade around in a sexual way on a cross. Well, at least some are standing. Now, the Dodgers are basically an evil organization, but I want to point out that there are something like 4 million Catholics just in the LA basin alone. And I think that those folks should make their voice heard. This is a developing story. But I'm kind of encouraged that a larger number of sports figures have spoken up. You know, usually Major League Baseball just folds like spineless little cowards and turns their logo into a pride logo. And they backed off of that. Now, the Dodgers, no, but Overall, the league went, we're not doing that. Do I really care what color, whether it's a rainbow colored Major League Baseball emblem or not? I didn't used to until the LGBT group decided they needed to shove it down my throat. They told me that I'm a horrible person if I don't eagerly endorse their behavior. Instead of a live and let live, if you're adults, do what you want to do, kind of libertarian view, I have to accept it. No, I don't. That's what they don't get. So, moving on to that culture war, Disney. You know that Disney's stock is the lowest it's been in about 30 years. Highly encouraging. That they've had several woke films, including The Little Mermaid recently, the live action. Instead of animated, they had an actual person, African American, very pretty girl, be the Little Mermaid. Well, it's done so poorly that they have turned off comments. So you are not allowed to comment on, say, Rotten Tomatoes on that woke film. In addition, nobody's going to see it. It's losing money, and it's not the only film that's losing money. We're going to go ahead and take our last break. This is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXEX, the best talk in town, and now also on 102.3 FM. As you know, I always try to be hopeful with my last segment, so I'm doing my best here. Again, thank you for paying attention to this show. Let's go ahead and come back. This is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXEX, the best talk in town. We're also on 102.3 FM. So Disney's suffering the consequences, and they recently had to fire an additional, they've already fired thousands of people, something like 10,000 people. They fired an additional 7,000. Well, good. They should suffer the consequences of, they used to be this family-friendly, didn't play politics. All of their entertainment wasn't the best. Some of it was really good, some of it wasn't. But it was family-friendly, didn't play politics. It was your place to go escape, and you knew that your kids could safely watch Disney. And now they're all woke. Well, go woke, go broke. Another example of that. And I consider this one, this is where we've been having this culture war for quite some time, but finally people went, that's it. This is Bud Light. They're down by 27 million, and these figures are a few days old. Excuse me, not million, billion, billion with a B, 27 billion in their stock. That's a big deal because it was only like 100, just over 100 billion value in the entire stock market. So that would mean that it was roughly 27% of their stock value has disappeared. In addition, somewhere around 25%, depends on where I look, I get slightly different answers, but roughly 25% of their sales are now gone. They are going to lose their number one place. They are going to lose shelf space. In retail, if you don't know, when you're the number one seller, you get the best spot in the store. It's at eye level. It's the easier to get to, easier to see. They're going to lose those spots. I frankly kind of want to actually clap and yell and cheer for all those people that went, okay, I'm done. An incredibly important message was sent through this. And then we've got transgender promoting Target. And they're not innocent. I want to point out that Target funds a group that their goal is to destroy Mount Rushmore because they say it's on stolen Indian land. Well, if we're going to play that game, it's just a matter of how far you want to go back, because the Indians weren't the first people here. There's some interesting videos and studies that have looked at the DNA and what we think of as the modern traditional Indians. They were the second wave. So shouldn't we give all of the land to those people for the New World? And then whoever arrived out of Africa in whatever place first, wouldn't those people? I mean, if this is how we're going to play this ridiculous game, oh wait, it's only modern times. Now, I'm not saying the Indians were treated fairly. Frankly, slavery and how the Indians were treated, there's a lot of horrible, no, I'm not proud of comparisons, and they were treated horribly. So, but we need to do better. And the solution isn't to just go, okay, well, then I'm going to play get evenness and I'm going to take away something from that group. The only way to actually get beyond this is to embrace Martin Luther King's dream of judging people by the content of their character, not the color of their skin. The left doesn't want to do that. You need to realize that. My friends on the left, and I actually do have some, and then I have some people that I watch regularly. Jimmy Dore, Russell Brand. Now, we get to social issues, and I find they're a little nuts, but we get to talking about First Amendment, and they also think this is nuts. We have potential allies that believe in free speech, that we need to defeat wokeness. Also, with getting back to Target, it's not just that they've got a group that is okay with destroying Mount Rushmore. They're also paying significant money to a group that wants to hide kids' transitions from parents. So kids in schools, they are spending money to do that. They decided they needed 2,000 different products to embrace gay pride, and I don't have a problem so much with the adult ones. I have a huge problem with tuck-friendly bathing suits for little kids. Groomers. And those groomers need to pay the price. Now, again, these numbers are also they're down 13 billion, and we do not have numbers from how they did over Memorial Day quite yet. I'm hoping their sales are way down. I would encourage you to drop into Target, ask where the groomer section is, see if they will direct you. If they don't know what you mean, you say, well, where you try to indoctrinate kids. And I would strongly encourage you to do that. There's Targets all over the country. Go in, talk to them. I hope you don't buy anything, but go in, find out where is the groomer section. I get that a lot of them hit it and back. Some of them actually got rid of a lot of the more offensive things, but they need to pay a price. This leaves me with hope. One of the other things that leaves me with hope is the fact that we are connected to God. We're going to go ahead and play that last video. Starts a little slow. This is Struggle Jennings and Caitlin Curtis.
Let's go. World getting crazy, baby, chill. Don't medicate, just meditate. You waking up now, well, baby, you hella late. Educate, look at what's going on, let it resonate, accelerate. Find your inner hunger like you never ate. Agenda is to push the hate. Separate and segregate, don't celebrate quite yet. The storm is coming, cue for heaven's sake. Violence that they demonstrate, instigate and penetrate the values of our country. And our God is what they desecrate. My fighters ain't no featherweight. Pulling out the seams of the fabric that they fabricate. They feed us lies, manipulate, intimidate through fear and force, forcing us to sit and wait till we come together, congregate, and then we liberate. Praying that you give me strength to find some love amongst the hate. Marching on the streets of blood till I see the golden gates. Troubadour, troubled souls, one of God's servants. Blades out, cut the grass till we see the serpents.
Oh, one day I hope you see the truth. This puppet show, it stays on because of you fools. We've been dancing with the devil way too long. I know it's fun, but get ready to pay your dues. Oh God, come back home.
Sing.
This crazy world is filled with liars and abusers. We need you now before we're too far gone. I hope one day they finally see the truth. God, we need you now.
Go ahead and cut it. Absolutely. It is not enough that we change ourselves, but in order for this to be a successful country, we need to be a moral country. This is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXEX, the best talk in town. That's a wrap.